is up, everybody? I am back with another Qbounti question. If you were here for the last stream, my apologies. For whatever reason, YouTube was not liking, you put Assad and Tulsi in the same question or in the same title. I don't like that very much. Let's go ahead and get to it. So here is question. Bring it back up. So this is the question. It says, when Assad is inevitably brought up by politicians, if we challenge them to do so, do you think they will show Tulsi how it's done and declare Assad an enemy of the United States themselves? That's pretty sure the person who asked that question was trying to be a smart ass, but it's okay. It's still a good question. Gives us an opportunity to do a little educational experience, right? So, do I believe that other politicians will call Assad an enemy of the United States? Of course. I think every other politician except for Tulsi that's in the race right now would do it. Why wouldn't they? Their establishment, that's the popular wave. Everyone is afraid of the military-industrial complex and the foreign policy establishment. Unfortunately, we're in an era of outrage culture where it's feelings above facts. Everybody wants instant gratification and wants to sound right on the issue rather than breaking it down and think about things pragmatically. So of course they would. Even if you don't challenge them on it, they'll still do it. I mean, unfortunately, even Bernie has towed that same line of attacking Assad. So the part about, do you think they'll show Tulsi how it's done and declare Assad an enemy of the United States? Now, that's the part I like, the part of the question I appreciate. Why is Assad an enemy of the United States again? Just out of curiosity. I don't know that, man. Do you know him personally? I don't know. The only one I'm guaranteed that out of everybody who watched this video, the only one who has met Assad in person, met his people, talked to the people that live under his government on the ground in Damascus, the only one who's watching this video, Tulsi. That's it. I don't know enough. I don't know about Assad. I know the facts that have been put out. I know that the chemical weapons attacks have been disproven by the leaks in the OPCW. I know that Tulsi is somebody who tries and understands the situation in its entirety rather than looking for a soundbite. Tulsi is not the type of person who is going to call anybody a war criminal until they've been convicted of war crimes, or until it is without, with absolute certainty that they are a war criminal. And usually, like for example, the war criminals of the United States. Bush is actually a war criminal. Actually, I think a bunch of people from his administration got convicted of war crimes. They just simply have not faced the music. You want Tulsi to call an Assad a war criminal based off of United States propaganda, demanding everyone who's running to call Assad a war criminal to manufacture consent to go to war. So if you want her to manufacture consent, or other politicians to manufacture consent, Mr. Qbounti donor, as much as I appreciate the question, then you better be ready to put on those combat boots, tie up them laces, blouse your ACU pants correctly, and go to war, and you get shot at. You go face trauma from killing innocent people. You face trauma from ending lives. And then you be responsible when another terrorist organization arises after propaganda is created because of our constant involvement in the Middle East. Question: say Assad was a psychopathic dictator, like say that was the case. Is constantly demonizing him, is that achieving, and is that stopping him from bombing his people? If that was the case, would that stop him? Or would that encourage him because of the attention that he's getting? Out of curiosity. Have we been to the like in the International Criminal Court? Has Assad been? Didn't he actually volunteer to stand trial? He volunteered. I don't understand. What is it that you hope to gain? That's what I'm still trying to understand about this entire thing. What is it that you hope to gain? Like, it's the same thing how I feel about Putin. I don't know Putin. I think Putin is a leader of a superpower and is either as guilty or as innocent as any other leaders that have been in charge of our country or other superpowers. But you don't get to that type of power in a superpower nation without any level of corruption or you know, of cronyism. But I do know this is attacking Putin in Russia over and over and over again. Aren't they one of the largest contributors to climate change? So how are we going to sit down with Russia to address climate change in a legitimate matter if we dichotomize who we talk to about climate change, for example, and allies or adversaries? How are we going to talk to Assad about anything going forward, potentially beating ISIS, getting terrorist organizations out of their country, like working in conjunction with the government to make sure it happens, if the first thing we do when we talk about Assad is say that he's an enemy of the United States? Because we all know why. We know why we do that. When we single out individuals in a particular nation, it's specifically because we want to invade that nation. That's the facts. That's why we didn't talk about Libya, right? We talked about Gaddafi. We rarely talked about Cuba. We talked about Fidel Castro. We didn't talk about, back then, it wasn't South Africa, the apartheid. It was, oh, look at what Nelson Mandela is trying to do. He's disruptive. We gotta go there. And we did go there, for those of you who don't know. We put names to disasters. We put names to, a lot of the times, lies. We've done that over and over and over again. While my question to you, Mr. Qbounti person, why don't you ask all of our leaders to declare Bibi Netanyahu an enemy of the United States? I mean, he commits war. He literally just bombed 3 countries, like not even a week ago. Why don't you ask all of our politicians to declare Saudi Arabia an enemy, or the Saudi Arabian regime an enemy of the United States? Why is it that we're so focused on Assad? Why? Because that's what the establishment wants us to be focused on, because that's where the oligarchs plan on making their next money move. They've already started that. We just gave Golan Heights to Israel. I just gonna give a part of Syria to Israel. And it turns out, of course, that the people who primarily have pillaged Golan Heights are in the Trump administration. What a surprise. So if you want other politicians to call Assad a war criminal, I mean, I guess. But then my question to you would be, for what? What are you hoping to achieve, out of curiosity? Like, what is your goal? Like, I feel like you're putting the cart before the horse. What is your goal? Is your goal, if, say he is guilty, he isn't, as far as what we know, at least from the last couple of years, he isn't guilty of what they exactly claim him to be guilty of. But let's just say if he was, calling him an enemy of the United States achieves what? You want to overthrow him so Syria engages in slave trade because of the destabilization, like what happened in Libya when we overthrew Gaddafi and didn't replace him with anybody? You understand that the goal of prominent secular Muslim dominant oil rich nations is destabilization. It is not peace. You are aware of this, right? That is one of the reasons I have such great respect for Tulsi, because she doesn't follow the status quo of, let's call everyone who the intelligence community alleges did something wrong an enemy of the United States, because she thinks of the next steps. Okay, then what? Couldn't more people potentially suffer and die just if that particular leader wanted to send a message to the United States because we keep demonizing him, and because any leader would be smart enough to know the moment that we start demonizing you, we're about to invade your country. I think that's common sense. So, I'd love to know what your thoughts are about this particular question. I appreciate the question. You know, I do think that other candidates should be forced to sit down and answer a question critically, pragmatically, and then explain the implications of what their answers are. Not just, oh my God, he bombed children. No, he didn't. No, he didn't bomb his own people. He didn't. He didn't do it. And pretending like he did is ignoring factual evidence that has disproved this theory time and time again. But once again, even if he did, your answers as president has implications going forward. And those candidates should be absolutely forced to say, yes, here's my plan to deal with this. And if the plan is we should go to war, then that president should not be president. You should not be commander in chief. Because you don't even understand, like you haven't even looked at the most basic evidence that disproves it, or at least at the bare minimum should put those accusations into question. The evidence scrutinizes those accusations, and if you're a commander in chief and you ignore that evidence, then you should not be commander in chief. If you're commander in chief and you try to use evidence that should be heavily scrutinized to send innocent people into war to kill more innocent people, then you should not be commander in chief. So if you are going to say Assad is a war criminal, I want to hear, okay, so now what? He's a war criminal without being prosecuted as one. Now what? You want to go to war? Okay, thank you. That's all I need to know. Bye. Next. Because that's what it comes down to. Don't call somebody something that hasn't been proven to be, that he hasn't been proven to be yet. He could still be that. I don't know. But he hasn't been proven to be a war criminal yet. And the last point I would like to make is, it's curious to me that everybody wants to talk about Assad when it comes to Tulsi, but they never want to talk about the literal terrorists that we're funding that Tulsi told us about from her visit. Dennis Kucinich also talks about this because he was there during that visit. They never want to talk about that part. Isn't that interesting? They don't ever want to talk about the fact that Assad and his actual opposition want the rebels, quote unquote, aka the terrorist organizations, out of the country, and that they know that the United States and the West has been funding this effort, which is why Tulsi refuses to back down on this particular, because she's been on the ground. Whereas those people who are beating the war drums against Assad, once again, sitting from their ivory towers, pointing the finger and telling us where to shoot. Maybe you should think about that. Other than that, people, always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. And if you want to ask me a question on Qbounti, you can go to Qbounti.com, Qbounti.com, and you might just get a video dedicated to your question. Peace.